What factors led to the collapse of the Warsaw Pact? Have you ever wondered how a powerful military alliance like the Warsaw Pact could fall apart? The story is quite fascinating and involves several key factors, especially in the context of Southeast Europe. The Warsaw Pact was established in 1955 as a response to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, known as NATO. It aimed to solidify Soviet influence over Eastern Europe. However, by the late 1980s, cracks began to appear. One major factor was the economic strains faced by Eastern European countries. Nations like Bulgaria and Romania struggled with severe economic challenges. By the 1980s, these economic difficulties weakened the alliance's unity. Countries found it hard to maintain their military commitments, which was essential for the pact's strength. Political unrest also played a significant role. The late 1980s saw a wave of democratization across Eastern Europe. Movements like Solidarity in Poland inspired similar actions in other countries. These movements led to democratic elections that often resulted in governments less aligned with Soviet interests. This shift towards democracy directly undermined the Warsaw Pact's purpose. Another important factor was the reforms initiated by Mikhail Gorbachev. His policies of glasnost, which means openness, and perestroika, which means restructuring, aimed to revitalize the Soviet economy and political system. However, these reforms also allowed Soviet satellite states to gain more autonomy. This shift further eroded the control that the Warsaw Pact had over its member nations. As countries in Eastern Europe began to assert their independence, they sought the removal of Soviet troops from their territories. This was particularly significant for nations like Hungary and Czechoslovakia, which had historical grievances against the Soviet military presence. The withdrawal of these troops marked a turning point in the relationship between the Soviet Union and its satellite states. The reunification of Germany in 1990 was another blow to the Warsaw Pact. East Germany's decision to leave the pact and reunify with West Germany symbolized the end of the division in Europe. This event marked the beginning of a new era of European integration that the Warsaw Pact could not withstand. Finally, the dissolution of the Soviet Union at the end of 1991 marked the final collapse of the Warsaw Pact. This event was a culmination of the political and economic changes across Eastern Europe and within the Soviet Union itself. The collapse of the Warsaw Pact was not just a military failure but also a reflection of broader regional changes. In Southeast Europe, the collapse of the Warsaw Pact signified a shift away from Soviet dominance. It opened the door for increased political and economic integration with Western Europe. The region began to move towards a more independent and democratic future, leaving behind the constraints of the past. The factors leading to the collapse of the Warsaw Pact illustrate how interconnected political, economic, and social changes can shape the course of history.